channel. The March 1st deadline for the sequester is now just a couple of weeks away, a little bit less. And if Congress can't strike a deal, it will cause massive across-the-board spending cuts, including those to the Defense Department. Joining us now are two members of the House Armed Services Committee, Republican Congressman from Utah, Rob Bishop, and Democratic Congressman from California, John Garamendi. Welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
First off, and we'll ask Congressman Garamendi, will the sequester happen, in your opinion?
I hope not. It's going to be devastating not only for the military, but for many, many other programs that people rely on. For example, air traffic controllers, border patrol, lots of programs are going to be very, very seriously impacted, and perhaps 750 to 1 million people will lose their jobs immediately.
Congressman Bishop, your thoughts?
Until the last minute happens, it's always a chance that something will work out, but it's looking very slim, to be honest with you. I wouldn't bet on it not happening.
Let's take a look at just a couple of basic figures about sequestration and what it will entail. We're talking about $1.2 trillion in cuts over the next decade, 85 billion cuts from agency budgets over the next 7 months. That's key, 85 billion over the next 7 months, including 46 billion from the Pentagon. And the interesting thing about this, gentlemen, is that the cuts are applied, as we understand it, evenly to every program, regardless of importance. And Congressman Bishop, I know that you had some fairly harsh words to Assistant Secretary of State Ashton Carter. I think it was on Wednesday, February 13th. I want to play a little bit of an exchange you had with him before we ask you about this here.
December was too late to start this question. Had you actually been doing something earlier about it, we may have been able to get the momentum that was extremely necessary. And I'm sorry, there is a lot of blame to go around if we actually have to have sequestration. Don't think you're going to get out of accepting some part of that blame.
But Congressman Bishop, on the other hand, General Odierno also said that it is impossible to plan for chaos. Your reaction?
Well, yeah, look, the problem with sequestration is it doesn't start with a level playing field. When we passed the stimulus bill, which is probably the second dumbest bill we ever passed, every level of government was increased except for defense. Defense was cut not once but twice, so they start $1.5 trillion below. And that's why the impact of defense is disproportionate and actually will be devastating. The problem that we had coming from the Pentagon is simply that they didn't really say anything about it. They said it's devastating, it's bad, but they didn't come up with the specifics of what it would mean until 1 month before it's supposed to go into effect. So if they'd been talking about this last January, or if they'd been talking about it in June and July with specifics of where they would cut, it would have been part of the political discussion in every campaign all the way along, and people would understand what the issue really is. But when you say it's devastating, okay, well, how are you going to solve it? Well, we're not going to plan anything, because what that tells you is it probably is not going to happen. And when the president says it's not going to happen, people tend to take him at his word. Now it's about to happen. So their tactics were either because they're timid, which I don't believe, or they tactically were silent on the issue. And now that they're saying what really will happen, it's too little and it's too late. And that's on their heads.
Congressman Garamendi, do you agree that the Defense Department is bearing an unfair burden of these cuts?
Well, we know that the cuts are going to be across the board at the Defense Department. They're unwise. They don't make much sense, or make no sense at all. It's not prioritizing those programs that are not necessary, not effective, or efficient. Similarly, on the discretionary side, these are programs for education, research, school lunch programs, even men and women that are in the food chain that are providing the safety of the food. All of these things are out there. What we need to do is to not look at blaming one way or another, but really put together a program. We still have 2 weeks to get it done, and it can be done. Proposals have been made to seek a balanced approach, making even larger cuts than the $85 billion in the deficit. Not in programs, but in the deficit, raising some taxes by ending certain loopholes, one of which you picked up just a few moments ago. The Google thing is unconscionable. That's a law. We need to change it. And we'll bring money into the Treasury in doing so. So we need a balanced approach to this. The military cuts have been proposed, at least by our team, to be stretched out over the next 5 or 6 years. Immediate cuts not to be made, but rather to do wise, thoughtful cuts as the troops come There can be some reductions, and we know that there can be reductions on the discretionary side. But we have to be thoughtful about it. Unfortunately, sequestration is anything but thoughtful. It is just a meat axe to everything, and it is very, very damaging. We ought not go there. We do have 2 weeks. Let's get back to work. Let's go vote and get something done.
Well, can you do that? Because Congress is in recess all of next week. It doesn't sound like there's tremendous urgency.
Well, there is urgency. There's no doubt about it. Yes, Congress is in recess. That's unfortunate. But we still have a week after that. Work has been done. Work is continuing to be done on compromises. And we're going to have to compromise on this. Both left, right, and center have got to find the middle ground and reduce our deficit, but do it in a thoughtful way.
Congressman John Garamendi, a Democrat from California, and Congressman Robert Bishop, a Republican from Utah. Thank you both. Really appreciate your time. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
A neurosurgeon and motivation